On today's episode of Curve Ahead, I am joined by Jacob Heeren, a financial advisor with Strategic Partners Financial Group, who helps business owners, especially those in growth mode, make smarter, more confident decisions about their money. In this episode, Jacob shares his approach working with business owners across different life stages, from negotiating early financial decisions to planning for retirement or even business exit. We also cover why fear-driven financial decisions, especially from headlines in social media, can derail even the best plan, and how to avoid the trap by focusing on fundamentals and long-term goals. Whether you're a founder trying to figure out tax strategy, retirement planning, or just to get your financial house in order, you'll walk away from this episode with more grounded, practical approach to your business and personal wealth. Before we dive in, there's a disclaimer.
Discussions in this show should not be construed as specific recommendations or investment advice. Always consult with your investment professional before making important investment decisions. Securities offered through registered representatives of Cambridge Investment Research Incorporated, a broker-dealer, member FINRA/SIPC. Advisory services offered through Cambridge Investment Research Advisors Incorporated, a registered investment advisor. Strategic Partners Financial Group and Cambridge are not affiliated.
Hey, Jacob, welcome to the show. Do you mind introducing yourself?
Yeah, my name is Jacob Heeren, and I'm a financial advisor with Strategic Partners Financial Group here in the greater Denver area.
How long have you been a financial advisor?
Yeah, so I graduated from the University of Kansas, from Wichita, Kansas in 2021. So you have to get licensed in order to do what I do. So I got licensed. That took about 6 months. Started that right after I graduated, and then have been working in the industry ever since. So this June celebrated 4 years of working in the industry.
So you had mentioned licensing. I don't know a lot about the financial realm. I do know that depending on what you're offering, what you're doing, that you might require different licenses. Does that allow you to operate in different states, or are you just bound to the state that you're currently in, which is Colorado?
Yeah, good question. So each state requires pretty much their own payment to be licensed in that state. So you can take the same exam in Kansas like I did and then pay to have coverage in multiple states. So me, for example, I have clients in Kansas, Colorado, Arizona, Florida, all over the place. And so I need to make sure that I'm licensed in all of those, but it only took one exam and then some continuing education to keep the exam and the licenses active.
So let me ask you this question. If you landed a client, do you see clients in states you're not necessarily licensed in, and then be like, okay, I'll get the license and then pull them on as a client? Or is it the other way around, that like, I'm now licensed in this state, I'm going to expand my reach into those states?
Yeah, that's another good question. So it's funny you ask it though, because this situation came across my desk about 2 months ago where a client of mine who I worked closely with, she passed away. And the daughter who lives in a state that I was not licensed in inherited the funds. And so I sit down and have a conversation and help the transition of assets to the daughter. And as we're doing that, I'm talking to her and seeing like, what's the purpose of these funds? Like, what role do you want them to play in your life now that you're receiving them? And there was a lot of areas I could help her out. And she said, Jacob, I'd really like you to continue stewarding these dollars and helping me invest them, take distributions as needed, make adjustments as they need to be made. And so in that situation, I was like, you know what, I really like you. I want to help you. And so I went ahead and got licensed in that state. If it's a particular situation where I can't really help them and I have to pay for a license in that state, typically I'll just say, hey, I think you should work with someone maybe a little bit more local. I think economically it doesn't make a lot of sense for either of us. So sometimes you pass, but as long as there's a need and a genuine way I can help them, I usually pursue that.
So you had mentioned that you graduated a handful of years ago. Did you go to school for finance? I just remember like going through my undergrad and then my MBA that like my finance courses were grueling and I hated them always. And I could never get past like either the professor or just kind of these concepts that seemed super foreign. Was that always kind of your aspiration?
It was. So my oldest brother and we've always had a really great relationship. And he had a really influential professor in his college that got him really excited about investing. And so Ben is an avid learner and he's a self learner as well. So he acquired as many books as he could by Michael Lewis, Michael Schwager, some people in the finance world. And once he was done with those books, I would see him on his bookshelf and ask if I could borrow them. So that was probably eighth grade freshman year where I got the bug. And next thing you know, I'm hanging out at Ben's apartment and we're just talking stocks for an hour. There was a class I took in high school called Youth Entrepreneurs of Kansas. And the final exam, so to speak, is you kind of create a business plan and a business model. You present it to the class, and whoever has the best business model voted on by all the other students gets to go on and compete against other schools. And so I had him help me because it was kind of a hedge fund, like investing and trading stocks based on these different ideas that I learned from the books. And so I got to go on and pitch that into a couple more rounds for YEK against other schools. And so I've just always loved investing, like compounding, learning that from a young age and actually applying it and seeing it happen really, really shifted my mindset that, okay, I want to help other people do this, but I also love people and I love talking to people. I'm naturally extroverted. And so how can I combine both the numbers and the type A side of me where the passion is with the passion of helping people? My parents are both business owners, so it's like I want to help people like them. That's running a bakery, running a Pilates studio, and show them how awesome it is when you can actually get your dollars working and make money while you sleep, so to speak. And so then I fell into financial advising. I thought it was a good combination, and like I said, 4 years into it, it's never a boring day. You never know what question is going to come through the door when you're the financial quarterback for somebody. So it keeps it really fun and fresh and interesting.
I love that perspective on, applying something that you've always been passionate about, but also being thoughtful and interested in helping people, making sure that their money is working for them long term. I know that you and I had a previous conversation and, you asked some great questions about me, my situation, and I'm sure that you do that with all of your clients. No, it's a really interesting perspective that you had. But being young and in finance, I have to ask the question, what are your thoughts on cryptos?
Yeah, cryptos, it's very heavily regulated. So I want to preface that like as a financial advisor with the licenses I hold. And so for me personally, if a client comes to me and says, "Hey, Jacob, I'm really interested in crypto. Can you tell me more about it?" I'm happy to educate them because I think it's kind of part of my job to stay up on some of those trends, some of those new investments that are out there. And so I meet them where they're at, tell me what you know about it, and then I'll try and fill in some gaps and maybe give them some resources to go and learn about it themselves, and then ask them to come back and revisit with me. And if they're saying, "Hey, I understand it a little bit better. I would like to make some type of an investment," then I would typically steer them to do that on their own, not through me. And I always kind of preface it with whatever dollars you're investing in it. Let's hypothetically say you could light it on fire. Are you okay with losing it? I'm not saying that's going to happen, but if you see it down 50, I don't want you to have to press the sell button. I want it to be within your comfort zone based on the dollar amount. And so I'll kind of steer them and nudge them in that direction. But as far as the bulk of their assets that they're truly relying on to accomplish whatever financial goals they have short and long term, I don't have crypto play a role in it.
I think that makes sense. I think there's a lot of speculation in crypto. And in all fairness, I don't understand it, right? Because it's like this pseudo money that is super speculative, that has no real monetary value behind it. But then again, if you think about stock, there's not a whole lot of difference. Because the corporation, you're buying a part of a corporation and you're speculating that they are going to do better over the long term. At least with the stock, it's backed in something tangible, whereas crypto is very speculative in my mind still.
Yeah, I share a lot of the same thoughts as you as it relates to crypto. When it comes to investing in stocks, I kind of have the mindset, if the time frame for these dollars that you're saving and investing is 10 plus years, let's invest in things that hypothetically, if we turn the stock market off for 10 years, would you still be comfortable holding that stock? Will Apple still be around 10 years from now? Procter and Gamble, Home Depot, ExxonMobil, whatever it is. With the crypto side of things, I think about it in very simple terms that it's all about supply and demand. So just basic economics, there's a limited supply of crypto and the demand obviously has been increasing over time, which is why the value has gone up and the supply has also kind of dropped since more people are buying them. And so there's so many factors I think that go into the demand of it. Governments printing money, lack of trust for good or for bad. These are people's decisions and conclusions that they've come to themselves and then have enough conviction to invest money in it. Other people just invest speculative because if they kind of listen to me, okay, I'm okay with losing, $2 grand or $500 or $20, whatever it is. Let's see what happens.
So when you're typically working with clients, is your focus always kind of their long-term horizon, like their retirement horizon, or are you also taking on clients and being, okay, look, I understand that this is where you want to be in the time that you would retire, but let's also look at where you're going to be in that 2.5 to 5 to 10 years and make sure that we're on track over that course of time.
Yeah, it's everything everywhere all at once. And so as you build a relationship with somebody, if I sit down and meet with someone who I haven't met before, I'm usually asking like, what's the top priority that we can talk about and accomplish today for this to be time well spent? And you'll find that when you ask that question, people will bring up either concerns like what's keeping them up at night or goals that they just don't know which step to take. And that goal could be, I want to buy a house in 5 years, or I just had a kid. How do I balance my retirement savings with saving for my kid? Because I want to pay for their college or a portion of it. Or I just started this business. Like I have no idea how to structure it. Like, can we figure that out in the next couple of months? Or maybe your business has grown and you're looking to save on taxes. Those are things I can help with immediately. But if you're trying to do those things, let's knock out those priorities while we're also keeping in mind when do you want to retire and what does retirement look like? Okay, well here's the accounts and the resources you have if you work at a company or if you're self-employed that I can kind of help direct you on how much to save, how to invest it, and what type of accounts to save towards. That way we're doing everything kind of all at once, but I usually start with whatever their top priority is and then work back.
I think I mean, it's a great approach, right? If you're there to service people, you always, whether it's in my application, which is a lot more B2B, it's okay, what is your top pain point and how have you tried to solve it? And how can I help you get past it right now? And a lot of times it's with businesses getting over like a revenue hurdle, or similarly, like they're trying to plan long term for their organization and they've come up against an obstacle that they don't necessarily have the answers for, nor do they have the people or talent embedded in their organization right now. So they're looking for external solutions. And that's, one of the things that I've helped with some of my clients is that like, okay, well, I don't understand how to get more visibility on my brand or business, or, I want to be more of a thought leader in the space and I don't know how to get started. So like those are really easy, quick obstacles to overcome. And then as you're doing that, you're trying to foster a long-term relationship, build a long-term strategy for them that's going to be sustainable for them and their business. So I do the same thing, just in a very different realm.
Yeah, I totally resonate with what you're saying because if someone comes to you, Brian, like with a small pain point that may be easily solvable for you, and they say, I also have this big picture idea that I want to tackle 5 years from now. I operate the same way. Well, what is that small pain point that we can solve today that I can show you, that can kind of earn your trust and then just take the relationship from there? It's as simple as if you say, hey, I'll follow up with you on Tuesday with an answer and you give a concrete deadline and you actually follow up with a great answer on Tuesday, that's an easy way to earn trust as well.
It's funny because it's like, it seems so fundamental, but it is so often overlooked or just isn't delivered upon, right? And don't get me wrong, like in my professional life, in my business, I've missed my own deadlines that I've set up for one reason or another. And then do think that affects my credibility. And I do feel terrible whenever that happens. But sometimes life is bigger than what you've promised. And I try to do everything that I can to prioritize that, especially when I'm working with a client. I will pretty much drop anything to make sure that if they have a deadline coming up that I'm not missing it. But like and this is where I'm going to show off that I'm not the best business owner. When it comes on like the sales side, the sales cycle of it, like sometimes I get great opportunities and I just kind of let them go and without any follow-up thoughts or actions. And that's on me, right? So is it a little bit of self-sabotage? Maybe. Could I do better there? Yeah, of course. But like, we're all human. We're all learning and growing, and it's part of the journey.
Yeah, and I heard a bunch of interesting things there, but like Brian, as a business owner, it stinks sometimes, but you have to wear multiple hats. Like sometimes you have to generate the sales, you have to find the clients. If you have employees, you have to be in charge of HR, you have to be in charge of bookkeeping. What's the long-term vision of the company? Do I need to hire somebody? All of these things, and it can get overwhelming. That's kind of where I love, like, well, why I reached out to you is I can just kind of recognize and see as business owners, I understand that that can be a struggle when all you wanted to do is you wanted to set out as a marketing and advertising company because that's what you're great at. But then you have this huge wake of all of these other responsibilities that you're not great at and you have to learn on the fly. And so if I can be a partner to especially business owners, just maybe asking questions that you don't know what to ask or just be a resource to plug you into my network, like I want to take some of those hats off of your head so you can focus on what you're great at. And if you're creating deadlines for yourself, it does stink that you have to stick to them. If it's a hat you don't have to wear, but hopefully as the business grows and you get better at multitasking, you can grow out of it or hire somebody else to do that stuff.
So I think that you made a great point. In partnering with businesses and having these conversations with them early on, what are some of what is the 1, 2, or 3 most commonly asked question of you of these business owners or things that you've observed over the years that would be most impactful for business owners to know when it comes to finance or working with a financial advisor for themselves or their business?
I think the best advice I could give is to find good people that you trust that are great at things that you're not great at. So that may be an accountant and a financial advisor. And depending on the type of business, maybe an attorney if you're working with business structure that's complex. And so having different resources that you can tap on as your business grows, because I think of businesses in different phases, and I'm sure you can appreciate this, but like you start out, you make the decision, okay, I'm going to leave this consistent paycheck that I'm getting from X whoever corporation. And that's a risk. I admire people that do that. Those are the people I want to help. And so you take that leap and you're making investments into the business and it starts to grow. And then once the business does start to grow and you're seeing revenue, the next pain point may be now I have all of these taxes. I made the investments at the beginning that aren't expenses anymore. And I did it. Like I'm kind of living the dream, money's showing up, but now I'm getting crushed by Uncle Sam. Like, how can I save on taxes? And so that's when I can directly step in and, if it's a retirement plan set up through the business, well, here's how you can use the capital that's already in your bank or generated from revenue to go into a retirement account for you that you're not paying tax on those dollars that year. Or as it's growing, maybe you're switching from an LLC to an S Corp to save on taxes. Well, I don't know what signals as the business owner. I just know I'm getting crushed on taxes. Retirement plan you mentioned is good. I didn't even know about the different business structure. And so, when I work with business owners, I see those signals when I'm catching up with them once or twice a year and say, hey, have you talked to your accountant about this? Okay, well, maybe we should have a discussion about the pros and cons of each. If it's not this year, maybe next year. Then the last thing would be like, okay, my business has grown. I'm looking to retire. Like, what do I do with my business now? Maybe it's a family member that you want to sell it to, or you have no idea. I had a client come to me earlier this year and they train like CPR. And so they'll work with like boot camps, hospitals, pools, and things like that. And he's like, I'm the business. Like, I don't know what to do with it. And so I always just start with like, well, what would you like to see happen? And so after he gives me some information, it's a great place to start. I just plug him in with all of the resources and options. If you go down this road, here's what it could look like. Here's another road. So that way we at least get the ball kind of rolling 3 or 4 years before that starts. And so that was a really long answer for like, as a business owner, what should I be thinking about or asking or prioritizing? And I think I would just prioritize like partnering with someone that can kind of help you navigate as you're growing your baby or your business through all these different phases.
Yeah, no, I think that was honestly, it wasn't that long of a winded answer. It was a great response to the question. So you had mentioned earlier kind of like the time that we're in. I know that economically we're in an interesting realm, right? We're seeing an increase in interest rates, so borrowing is down, whereas like in 2020 borrowing was, especially for businesses, was up, money was cheap. How has that impacted how you do business and how business owners or people view their money or how they think about their money?
Yeah, I mean, the easy answer is money is more expensive. You said it. And so it is, again, just like finding the other options that are available out there to borrow money that actually fits in to the businesses or the person's cash flow. Yeah, it's not unfortunate, but it has been a little bit, I guess, trickier to navigate. The thing about 2020 is that a lot of business owners that took out the loans probably didn't need 100% of those dollars. And so there's still a lot of money sitting around in money market funds and business bank accounts that people are able to deploy now on whatever investments. I think a lot of business owners were probably smart when interest rates were low to maybe borrow a little bit more than they needed, anticipatory of the fact that they knew interest rates were going to rise. And so that's kind of helped. Inflation has gone up. And for some businesses, that means profit has gone up as well. Their expenses have gone up along with it. I mean, I think as it relates to borrowing, it's really just a conversation of like, how important is this investment and what's the return you're going to get on it and see from the business? And does that outweigh the cost of what it's going to take to borrow? Or should we put it on hold until interest rates are a little bit lower, if and when that happens, to make that decision?
Yeah. It's funny. I was having a similar conversation, I feel like at the beginning of last year, and he was basically taking me through the same steps where he deals specifically with businesses and helps him stack like credit cards or loans so that those entrepreneurs or founders can maximize where they are at that given period of time to get the available funds to them or as much as they possibly need. Whether that's a good idea or a bad idea long term, who knows? I would probably put it more on the bad idea realm where you're maximizing what you can borrow. Just because you can borrow it doesn't mean you should. And
Yeah.
I'm not a financial professional. Do not take my advice. Please consult an advisor.
Yeah, no, totally. I kind of have a similar mindset to what you just mentioned too, is like, let's find the lowest interest rate possible. What does it cost to access that? Like for some people, it may look like a home equity line of credit. That's worked out. Depending on the situation. And if the numbers end up making sense and you're not going to end up having to rob Peter to pay Paul, so to speak, having to take out another loan to pay off this one, and the return on investment for whatever capital you're spending it on, that it's going to generate in revenue. As long as whoever I'm sitting across from knows all of the potential outcomes, it's their decision at the end of the day. I just want them to make the most educated decision as possible rather than making it by themselves.
Yep, I agree. Be educated in what it is that you're doing, especially when it comes to finances around personal or business. You can run into a lot of pitfalls. There's a lot of not so many predatory practices, although I have seen kind of like an increase in that, but not here nor there. So, Jacob, I've got just a couple of questions left for you. I appreciate your time so far today. What is the biggest challenge that you are facing in the next year, whether it be personally or professionally, and then what are you doing to kind of overcome that?
Yeah, I think this year it's nothing new. I've had a lot of conversations though with clients that have brought up a concern about X, Y, and Z coming out of this news outlet or this headline. I know it's always been around. And so like, what I'm really focusing on is addressing that with clients. Like I'm so happy that you turn to your advisor and turn off the TV when that situation happens. The unfortunate part is we live in the 24-hour news cycle nowadays. And so there's a bunch of scare tactics that are consistently thrown at people that I oftentimes just feel bad for a lot of the people that come to me concerned, whether they're clients or not, because they have a real fear that they may not be able to do what they want to do or what they were planning on doing because of this thing I read. And so it's not so much of a challenge as I think it is opportunity to show value to new clients that I'm meeting with that may be prospective, that this is a great reminder to turn off the news and turn to an advisor like me and just rely on the plan that we put together. As your life changes, we'll pivot too. That's exactly what I'm here for. That's why I reach out to you twice a year so we can have these conversations and find out what's important. But I think that that's just going to be a challenge for everybody, you and I included. So if I can give any advice to anybody, go touch some grass, turn off the news, put your phone down for a couple hours a day, and just remember, we're here spending our time. That's the most valuable resource, and it's not renewable. So spend it doing what you want to do rather than listening to some talking heads that are trying to scare you.
Yep, love that. So at the end of each one of my episodes, I give all of my guests 90 seconds to plug anything. And this could be something they're passionate about. This could be related to your business. So without further ado, the next 90 seconds are yours.
Yeah, I won't even take up all of it, but I'm just going to describe the client that I really love to work with, our business owners. My dad owned a bakery and my mom still runs a Pilates studio out. And so I love helping people like that. And so if you are a business owner where you've seen your revenue start to increase and you're looking for ways to save on taxes while tucking away those dollars for your own retirement, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I would love to just schedule a quick 10-minute intro call to see if I can help. If I can, I'll let you know. If I can't, I will also let you know.
Awesome. Jacob, appreciate your time.